Hello everybody, this is Jurius Doctor, and I am back again with a new video. I have just recently come off of a stream where I had been attempting to stream Eve with a walkthrough of the new player creation. I've decided for the recording this video for YouTube, I've decided to skip forward just to the start of the current NPE with this new Minmatar character that I've created. It's been a long time since I've created a Minmatar character, and the music's a bit loud. I'm going to turn that down a bit. There we go. And I wanted to play a Minmatar character, for the third character on my main account. It's been a long time since I've had a third character on this account, and I recently took advantage of CCP's sale where you're able to buy 3 months of subscription time with 2 multiple character training certificates activated with the time. So I figured a third character open on the account. Why not take advantage of it and have something training, even if it's just for extra skill points or to have a character to run through the NPE on. So here you can see I've got my new Minmatar character in their ship, and new Minmatar character, I've named her Nibiri. The last name Hakuli was randomly generated by the game client, and we have some basic information here. Now, I wanted to record this video as a more detailed, long-form walkthrough for new players to help you orient on EVE Online. And just before you arrive at this screen, where the new player experience starts, and Aura, your ship's computer or AI, says to you, "Hey, Captain, it's your first time in your ship. Let's talk about this experience," and it starts trying to orient you. But there's a lot of assumed knowledge that happens here as they walk you through the process of learning what it is that you're looking at. I'm going to try and accelerate some of that for you. Now, you can see it's pretty dark in my place. It's night. It's actually after midnight here. Thankfully, because I've been working from home so much and COVID-19 and everything, I have been, my sleep schedule's been a little disrupted. So I'm going to record this. One thing I will say, though, is that for being this late at night and having this much, glare and such, though I do have an extra light up here providing a little extra, lighting just for effect, is that one of the things that I do in Windows 10 is that I use the nightlight feature, which is visible just by expanding your notifications window at the bottom right-hand corner of your primary screen, and then clicking expand on the little menu of buttons just above where it says tablet mode, network, all settings, and airplane mode. Click expand and you'll see there's a bunch of extra boxes there. And one of those is nightlight. And when you turn it on and you can dial these settings to your liking, it will adjust the brightness and color tone of your screen. And I tend to favor having this be a lot farther away from the blue light spectrum. It also happens to fit in with the color scheme of the Minmatar. So I thought that worked really well for this particular interface. It also helps to, give me a little bit more eye relief. Even though the glasses that I wear do have a very slight blue light correction in them, I do find I suffer from a lot fewer headaches when I operate with nightlight on. And so I just tend to leave it on 24/7. But I wanted to give you an idea as to what this looks like. Now, to give you a high-level overview of what you're looking at when you get a new character right out of the get-go is you have a character sheet accessible by clicking on your character portrait. If you mouse over the character portrait, you'll see the keyboard shortcut for it is Alt-A. I currently have a wallet balance of 5,000 ISK. You can access your wallet by holding Alt and pressing W, or pressing this little ISK icon, the Z. So if I go Alt-W, I can bring in my Plex. Now I can see that I have a wallet income, a starting income as a new character of 5,000 ISK. But because I have a ship, and I have a pod, and I have fittings on that ship, the actual net wealth of this character, the net worth, is 17,112 ISK. So at current market value, I have no expenses, I have a net wallet of 5,000 ISK, and I've got a certain amount of worth implicit in the fact that I have a medical clone and I have a ship. And I have no transactions, I have no market details, I have no automatic payments going out, and I have no history. no skills trained, and no employment. So my character is currently a member of the Paytor Tech School. Created this character at 6:33. It is now 07:12 UTC time 0. So this is a brand new character, day one, and a few things that I'm going to walk you through. When you open your character sheet for the first time, this is going to be set for all skills, and you will likely be viewing it in this format. So what you have here is your total skills and the additional skills that you have trained. Now, because I'm creating this character on an account that is already subscribed and brand new, I am getting no additional skill points to, bonus this character's advancement. When you sign up on my YouTube channel by clicking the Play Eve Online that's up on the banner, it will, if you're creating a new character on a new account, bonus you with additional skill points for using my Join the Game link. Both you and I will receive bonus skill points. And it also lets me know that you have signed up for the game, and it gives you the opportunity to reach out to me for us to be connected in the game. This is a great way to, get you in and also give you an incentive for joining. And it also is a fantastic opportunity for you to reach out to me in-game using the in-game mail. It looks like this little envelope icon. And just like using email on your regular computer account, you can create new mail, type in Jurius Doctor, hit next, and it will automatically send to me because there's just one Jurius Doctor in the game. Now, if you remove that and you click the to button, just like with your email at work or at home, you can search Jurius Doctor and it will find me. There is one of me. So you go to Jurius Doctor, go add. It's just like my name and my YouTube channel. You can send a message to me and you can say, hey, I've started playing Eve. I used your link. Will you be my mentor? And the answer to that is always yes. I will help you, I will give you information, and I will continue to guide you in your experience with this game. Now, a couple of things that I recommend that you do. You can see that some of these things you won't have trained at all, and some of these have very, very little training to begin with. Engineering is one of those ones that they give you a little bit more skill to begin with, and scanning as well, just because it's helpful for newbros and it makes sense in context with the game. But you don't really need to look at this view. This is useful to help you understand what these icons mean, but you can click this little triangle to minimize them, and when you mouse over them, it will tell you what you need to know anyways. And I find that for a lot of people, this is a much more intuitive approach to looking at these skills and switching between them. Another thing you're probably going to want to do is change this from all skills to either my skills or can train now, or have prerequisites for. So if you go to my skills, this will show you the skills you currently have. I have a video called Introduction to Core Skills. You should watch it. It covers which skills you should train initially, so I'm not going to cover those in this video, though I may add them in, or some to get me started. You can also go have prerequisites for, will show you what skills you can then begin to train based on the skills that you currently have and based on which category you're looking at. So right now I'm looking at Spaceship Command. Spaceship Command is the skill set that you need to fly spaceships. If I go to have prerequisites for, right now, even though my character is Minmatar, I as Nibiri have the ability to fly mining frigates, so Ventures, Minmatar industrial ships, which is, haulers for the Minmatar, Minmatar frigate, which is what I'm currently in. I'm in a Corvette. And I have some degree of Spaceship Command, which gives me a bonus to agility for my ships per level of training. I can also learn right away, I can begin learning Amar frigate, Caldari frigate, Galente, and I can learn Amar, Caldari, or Galente industrial. So I can begin training into these other races right away. The only barrier to entry for those is that I need to buy the skill book And when I mouse over the skills I do not have, reflected by these small pips, as opposed to square gray boxes that can then be filled in for indicating levels of completion. A white box is you have a level of that skill trained. A partial or triangular, fill in for one of these means that it's currently in train or partially trained. And a gray box means that it's not trained. These small pips means you do not have the skill. In order to buy the skill, you can buy most skills directly through your character sheet just by mousing over it. But to go and buy that skill, I need to pay the entry price, which is 65,000 ISK for the skill book. In order to buy it and begin training, I need to have enough money to go buying it. But right now, I only have 5,000 ISK in my wallet. So what do I do? Well, as a new player, what you're going to want to do is follow the initial new player experience and some of the initial missions, because you will receive payment more than sufficient to purchase several skill books just by doing several of the starter missions. The other thing that you can do is, if you have friends who are playing EVE, just ask them to give you some ISK. A lot of the time, as new players, people will easily drop 10, 20, 50 million ISK on you. To a player who's been playing for a long time, 50 million ISK is like giving 25 cents to a hobo. It's really not a lot of money, and it goes by so quickly. But to a new player, making 1 million ISK mining seems like this insurmountable, hurdle to get over. It's really not. After time, you will learn to play this game. You will pick it up, but it is definitely a case of delayed gratification. And in this way, I say that EVE Online is not a game. It is a simulator, and it is a friendship simulator more than it is a space simulator. And what I mean by that is, this game rewards you for making weak and strong social ties of advantage with other players. Be it joining a corporation, forming an industrial group, cooperating with other miners and industrials to help yourselves be more efficient and more profitable, and learning the skills in this game in order to make yourself self-sufficient. This really is where you start to develop these skills, and it can help to provide insight for you in other areas of your life. And when I say that, I'm not being ironic and I'm not being dismissive. I mean it. I know people who've gotten jobs at Amazon, at other large organizations, by mentioning in their interview the fact that they run a corporation in EVE, or that they're a logistics specialist in a major corporation in EVE. It is a serious training ground. And when I say that this game is a simulation, it is first and foremost a friendship simulator, because the people that you meet in this game, when you prove that you are smart and capable and organized, that will translate into their awareness of you. And a lot of these people who play this game, because there are no dumb people playing EVE, they can actually hook you up in the real world. And there are many, many powerful and wonderful examples of people who play EVE who've gotten jobs because they happen to know somebody who worked somewhere else who also plays this game. And it's not the driver for this game, but it's a definite perk. So don't be afraid to network. Don't be afraid to chat with people and learn from others and grow in this game, because you never know where it'll lead you. Now, to get back to the actual gameplay, you can see that I can start training these other races. I am not, restricted from being able to play these other races. Another difference is that there are two different types of clone states. There is Omega, where you subscribe, you pay a certain amount for game time. You can add game time by buying Plex and redeeming it for game time. You can pay a monthly subscription, or you can pay for multiple months at a time and thus earn a significant discount on your rate of pay. But there are advantages to subscribing. As an alpha player, you train at half the speed of an Omega player. So skills that would take me 5 days to train up to level 5, or a week to train to level 5, will take 10 days for a player who's not subscribing for this game. So free-to-play players train at half the speed of paid players. So alpha clones train at half the speed of omega clones. Omega clones get a selection of 355 unique ships to fly. They have the ability to train all of the skills up to maximum level. They train the skills at twice the speed, as mentioned, and they have exclusive access to Triglavian ship piloting, which I'll get into in a little bit. But to begin with, one of the big advantages to subscribing is that you can have an unlimited skill queue. And by unlimited, what we mean is unlimited in duration. So if I add up some new skills here, so I'm going to say I want to add 2 levels of mining frigate, and I want to add 2 levels of Minmatar frigate, and I want to add another level of spaceship command. Right now, I can do this much as a starting player because the number of skills to train here falls within a 1-day, 24-hour timeline. As a Omega character, you can't train more than 24 hours worth of skills. It'll let you throw 24 hours worth of skills into your queue. Once you try to add past this point, it'll say, nope, you can't start that skill in the next 24 hours, so you can't add it. But as an Omega character, I can add up to 50 skills to my queue with an unlimited duration. And these skills continue to train even when I'm not logged into the game. That's why it's a real-world duration of time. And when you're using the Eve mobile app on your cell phone, you can monitor the progress of your skill training on the go from your app on your phone on either iOS or Android. And that's kind of one of the great things about that mobile app. Now, I've added in a couple levels of Minmatar frigate. I'm going to put these in here together. A mining frigate and Minmatar frigate. I want to train these to level 4. And the other thing I can do is I can move these levels around. So what I like to do is stack my skills so that the shortest training times for skills train first, and then slightly longer ones, and then the really long ones. So I can move these around so that I see the greatest completion of training in the shortest amount of time. So, 2 hours from now or 2 hours and 30 minutes, I will have trained the first 2 levels here of Mining Frigate and Minmatar Frigate. And then while I'm sleeping tonight, and into tomorrow, I'll have Mining Frigate and Minmatar Frigate 3 also trained in. And I can change the order of these in the way that I want. And I can tell which skills I've unlocked. So this icon here tells me that in the process of having trained Minmatar Frigate 3, I now have access to train the skill for Minmatar Destroyer, but it's telling me that I need to buy the skill book. So if I go and I show the information on this, I can see I don't have the skill. I can't immediately start training it, but I've met the prerequisites to train it. So I can now learn Minmatar Destroyer. If I wanted to buy Minmatar Destroyer, I have to also make sure that I have the other required skills trained, and I have to buy the skill book, which is 130,000 ISK. So I'm not going to do that right away, but I do have my initial starting queue going, and I want to click Start. Now, by default, if you haven't activated a multiple character training certificate, which I have several on my main account, this is also on the main account, this is the third character, I can activate one by turning on the extra training from that other account. Right now, I'm just going to set up the skill queue and leave it as is. I'll turn the skill queue training on later. So I've given you a little bit of an overview around skills and how to navigate them. I've shown you the character portrait. I've shown you your character wealth and opened the wallet. Let's talk a little bit more about how Eve is played. Now here what I've done is I've clicked and held in space on my ship, and I'm given some options of things that I can access. This is called the Radial menu. And the Radial menu presents a lot of different options. And the Radial menu works in space when I click on something. And it works, these are called brackets, so these things that you see in space. Now, if I click anywhere in just regular space and I left click and hold, it will move my ship around. It will orbit the camera around my ship. And the more I zoom out, the smaller my ship looks in space. Space is friggin' huge. This is a 400 kilometer across strategic circle, this tactical map. And there, right at the really, really, really small middle of it, is the smallest classification of ship in the game, the Corvette. And as I zoom out, here's my itty bitty little ship, which really just looks like the tip of a ballpoint pen, out to 5 kilometers, out to 10 kilometers, 20, 30, 50, 100, 150, and 200. So 200 kilometers across. And I can turn this strategic overlay that kind of gives me a horizon. I can turn this on and off by turning on the tactical overlay. So when you're first playing this game, you might want to turn off the tactical overlay just to give it a little bit more of that cinematic feel. But I find having it turned on, it helps me to understand how far away am I? And it also helps with things like understanding, are my guns targeting what they're supposed to be? Now, your little ship here is how you relate to the rest of EVE. Unlike other games, EVE Online is ship focused. It is not little running person sprite, interfacing with the world and then getting into a ship and flying the ship. You are the ship. And to help you understand this, I'm going to eject my character from this Corvette. So I'm going to right click, or I can press and hold, and I'm given different options. So right clicking in space gives me context menus, and it's different context menus depending on whether I right click in space, just somewhere that is not an object, or if I right click on a bracket or an object, or if I right click on my ship. So if I right click on my ship, I can say stop my ship, which will drop my velocity to 0. I can activate autopilot and set a course and have it go somewhere. I can look at my ship, which really just resets the camera. I can show information on my ship, and here it tells me a little bit about my ship, which we'll go over in a second. And I can right click, and I can also eject from my ship. So now if I self-destruct, it's going to blow me up and I'm going to get another Nubro ship. I'll be transported to the nearest structure and I'll be given a new Corvette. Corvettes are free. You get them all the time. Typically when you die or are blown up. Now if I eject, it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? Because when you eject from your ship, you may end up causing things to go offline, or it may break things. I'm going to say yes. So now what's happened is I've ejected out of my ship. My ship is still there. Lights are still on. Power's still going. But nobody is home. There are human beings, my crew, living on the ship and operating the ship. But right now, nobody's giving them instructions. Nobody's telling them where to go because I am the captain. And the captain, the capsuleer, lives in a capsule. You are like the cybernetically enhanced humans of the Matrix films, with all the little lovely, plugs in the back of your head. You are the pilot. You are the important person. If you right-click on your name and you go show info in chat, and you click on your character portrait and you view the full body portrait, you will see, if your character is not wearing a jacket, that there are implant holes all the way down your back, metal ports for technology to interface with you. And where your capsule is that your capsule is essentially a Volkswagen or like a Fiat 500 sized pod. It's the size of a really small compact car in which you live pretty much persistently, immersed in a biomimetic gel, plugged in like the pods in the Matrix on the big power stacks operated by all the AI, all the sentinels. You live in one of those pods in fluid, permanently and persistently plugged into your capsule. That's why capsuleers are called capsuleers. So unless a capsuleer intentionally exits their pod on a planet or in a starbase, in the lore, you never get out of this thing. This is where you live. This is your home, and your capsule joins a ship when you board it. And once that capsule is embedded within the ship, you are in direct neural control of its systems. You have a crew that lives on the ship and maintains the ship and operates the systems and maintains and feeds the guns, or the weapon systems, or monitors shield output and does minor repairs. But your pilot and the general operation and direction and firing of the weapons of the ship happens directly by neural control. And the purpose of the pod or the capsule is to service as a escape vessel in the event that your ship is destroyed. So, unlike other games, EVE Online is ship focused, and even your pod has its own detailed breakout of its resistances to damage, its number of hit points, and everything else. So you're not invulnerable, and if your capsule is destroyed, your clone is destroyed, and you respawn at your home station in your medical clone. So when someone talks about getting podded, that's what they're referring to. So now that I've kind of explained, how the ship works at a conceptual level, let's talk about some other factors here. So the first we have is the capacitor control. Now the capacitor is actually this portion here in the middle. People talk about the capacitor and they're often referring to the cluster of controls around the capacitor, but the capacitor is this middle window here. And this is literally just how much power output does your ship have in the ability to power systems. So if I turn on an afterburner, right now I'm using power, but I'm not going anywhere. So if I turn on my afterburner, I'm not going anywhere unless I pick a direction and start moving that way. But I used a little bit of power. I went from 100% power down to 99%, and this will regenerate over time. It'll refill back up to 144 of 144. So this is how much raw output can your power grid provide to power things like afterburners and guns. Now, this above range here, these are your resistances. These are your damage, your effective hit points. So you have a hit point bar for your shield. That's the outermost one. You have a hit point bar for your armor, and you have a hit point bar for your structural resistances. And these each provide you a certain amount of protection before your ship will be destroyed. When you get into 97% of your shield, so you go from 100 down to 97, you've lost 3% of your health on your shields, an audible alarm will play. When you get into 3% of your armor, or 97% full, so you lose 3% to damage, a different alarm will go off, and it's audible. You'll hear it if you have sound turned on in EVE. Your structure, when you get 3% damage against your structure, you'll hear the hull alarm go off. And I can tell you right now, the hull alarm is the scariest sound to every player in EVE. You will experience it. You will have that clench moment. There's always that moment of holy crap when you get into hull, because that is the last little resistance before your ship goes boom. How do you overcome that fear? Have more ships, and we'll get there. This down here is your speedometer. I can speed up, so I can set my maximum speed just by clicking the plus here, set full speed, and all of a sudden my ship starts moving. You can see the little contrails from me, the exhaust jets, the engine streams here from me traveling, and if I click minus, I stop the ship. Now I can also hold control and press spacebar to come to a complete stop. And I can use keyboard commands to speed up as well. I can also set a partial speed. So I can say I want to go to 3/4 of my speed. So 1/4, half, 3/4. And if I go to 3/4 speed and I align myself with a place I want to go to. So I can right click and say align to, or I can click in my overview. That's what this window is called, is the overview. I can click on a station. So squares are stations. Circular profiles are celestial bodies like stargates, planets, moons, wormholes. And triangular profiles are objects in space like beacons, ships, enemy NPCs, those kinds of things. So I can say I want to align to this station. So this is your selected item field. So then I have my overview, things I can see in space. My selected item is the station right now. I can change this tag window to be a little bit narrower. So here we go. We have a Minmatar station. It's a research station. I can align to it. And when I'm aligned 100% to a station, so I'm heading straight for it, this little vector arrow comes and aligns directly with the direction I want to go, and I'm going at least 3% of my maximum speed, or 75%, 3/4 of the maximum speed, facing directly towards where I want to go. When I click the warp to within location, it will warp me there, but I will not go immediately to warp if I'm not traveling at least 3/4 of my maximum speed. Now let's go back to a dead stop here. First thing Aura is going to say is, it appears that there's a Concord research vessel under attack from Seeker drones. There's a Seeker event going on. We should go investigate it. So we're going to go warp to location.
Warp drive active.
And Aura is going to show us what it looks like to go to warp. So you can see this is the progress bar of aligning to go where we're going to go. Once we got to 3/4 of our maximum speed, boom, we went into warp. So then you see the lovely cinematic of the warp tunnel. So here we're traveling through space. There's some spatial distortion as we're going through space, and we're going to say continue. The vessel's been destroyed, but we might still be able to recover the data that they talked about. So here we end up back at the initial location that I sort of spawned in, and 3 little enemy vessels warped out. So we have a confirmed wreck location. There's the wreck. It's got this little key pointer here to tell me this is where I'm supposed to look. And now, as a ship, I can choose to interact with this space. I can go to this ship and I can click on it to select it. Now, if I really want to lock it as a target or select it, I can hold Q and left click to orbit it or approach it. But I can also click on it in space and I can click approach. Now, right now, it's not showing up in my overview unless I go to my situational tab. You'll notice that I have multiple colored tabs set up, multiple views in my overview. This comes from another video that I covered called Tips and Tricks Overview Settings and Overview Packs. You can review these at your leisure and how to set these up, but for the purpose of simplicity, I have not added this in here. Now, one thing you'll see that is I'm getting attacked by a ship, but I don't have it in my overview, so I'm going to add it to my overview. And now I'm going to target that ship, and I'm going to orbit it. Because it's shooting at me, I'm going to now fly in at it, and I'm going to orbit it. Now, I can turn on my guns in order to fire. That little red circle, and this is one big reason to have your tactical overlay turned on, that little red circle is the effective range of my guns. I can reach out to 5 kilometers with my guns, but I am most effective with my guns inside of 825 meters. So that's the interior smaller red ring. So now I'm going to go back to the wreck of the ship I just blew up. And right now I'm not even using my afterburner. I'm not traveling at significantly huge speeds right now in my little ship. So I'm going to approach this sleeper wreck. Just going to approach it here. And what I'm going to do is open the cargo, and I have metal scraps. And I can view that these are, bits of the destroyed ship. This is loot. So I'm going to loot everything. Click loot all. And now you can see that in my hold of my ship, my cargo, I have metal scraps. Now, what I can do, next to the wreck of this ship, if I had a salvaging laser, I could salvage this wreck for additional loot. But what I want to do is I want to go up to this research ship here, and I want to see if I can loot it. You have to be within 2,500 meters to loot something. In this case, it doesn't look like I can. So well done, we've destroyed the ship. Now it's time to go home. So how do we get around in space? Well, let's take a second here to enjoy this art setup that they've given us here. We have some destroyed things. We have a ripped structure. We have a destroyed Nestor battleship here. If I right-click on these and I go show info, everything in space typically has a description to it to tell you a little bit more about what it is that you're looking at. If you click on something in space and you use the eye symbol where you hold Alt and click, it allows you to look at it and be able to turn that thing around. So you can now, if you look at this, see how the ship has been blown up. You can see the pieces of it thrown out into space, and you can orbit around it. To look back at your own ship, hold Alt and click anywhere in space, and then you're back at your own ship. So, provided you haven't accidentally clicked on something else, like I just did. So, here we're in a huge amount of space, and there we are, back to my normal ship. So now what I'm going to do, double-click anywhere in space, and you'll start traveling in that location, towards that location, in that direction. Now, as you change your speed, you can control how quickly you want to get around that space. So if I know I want to go generally in this direction, but I don't necessarily want to go bumping into things, I can actually just pick a direction and lower my speed to give me a little bit more time to look around. And just like before, I can right-click and say Show Info, or I can click on an object in space and click I for Show Info. It will tell me, okay, this is just ruins. So obviously they haven't invested a lot of time describing what this is. So there's a Galente Dreadnought. This is the remains of a morose Dreadnought. And we can see this has been blown up. This is one of New Eden's most impressive ships. But it's been blown to smithereens. And we can see that there's a station here. Massive debris. So if we show info on it, unidentified debris on a massive scale. Sensors indicate multiple severe power surges emanating throughout. And we can see there's this huge lightning effect around it. And depending on where we go, we can see there's a huge silvery white stalagmite. We could show info on that. And the more we look at things, the more we get a sense for what's happening around us in Eve. Now, you're not going to spend a lot of time just clicking on things and going, you look at. It's not very realistic, but it does, when you're just getting started and getting a look and a feel for things, you get to understand what these are. Now, I know from experience that this is the Galente Nullsec station, or the typical model that you would find as a faction Fortizar in Nullsec, but null security space. But let's just go back to flying my little ship here. So I'm going to follow Aura's instructions. I'm going to locate the station on my overview, and then I'm going to either press D and then click on it, or I can click on the station here and I can say dock, or I can right click and say dock here. So there's multiple ways to get to the same end. So I can also align to it, which will point my ship in the direction of the station so that I can see it in space. And then I can mouse over it, right click and say dock. Or I can press and hold on it, get the radial menu and say dock. There's multiple ways of doing the same action in Eve. Many, many ways. This is partially to make it more accessible to people who have limited interface with the game. So if you're somebody who is mobility challenged and you can only play with a mouse, fantastic. Same thing goes for keyboard. If you're predominantly focused on using a keyboard, or maybe you're playing on a laptop and your mouse pad isn't so great, you can use keyboard commands for a lot of this stuff. So now I'm going to dock at that station, as Aura has indicated, it's going to bring me up to 3/4 of my maximum speed, at which point I will go into warp because I'm aligned and traveling at speed, and then the warp engine kicks in and boom, off we go. So now, as I approach the station here, it's going to land us on grid with the station, and it's going to request docking rights from the station, at which point our ship will dock with the station, and you'll get a chance to see what the station interface looks like. Somebody has put a whole bunch of recruiting canisters in space, so I'm going to remove cargo containers from my overview
Docking
because I
permission
don't want to see all
requested.
that
Docking
spam.
request accepted.
So there we go. We've arrived at our first home station. And I say first home station because there's more than 8,000 systems in EVE Online, and you can live in any one of them. So don't get attached to the station in your starting system. Home is your ship. It's not necessarily the station in which your stuff is. You will move around a lot in this game. And if you join corporations, which you should, you will go where your corporation goes. It's just how things are. Now, Aura is giving me instructions on clicking the agency interface. The agency is the starting window that gives you a whole bunch of options to learn how to play the game. There's a tutorial, there's agents and missions, there's encounters, there's exploration, there's resource harvesting. There's all kinds of things you can do as a new player, and this is your self-serve menu. Think of it being like the menu when you go into a restaurant. You sit down, you kind of decide what you want to do that day. Do you feel a little bit more like steak, or are you more like a chicken and waffles kind of mood? This is your opportunity to sit down and decide what you're going to do. And through this first phase, Aura is going to walk you through the steps to help orient you on how you're going to proceed. So here we've started with beginning the investigation. I can activate this and go forward with the rest of the steps in order to earn an initial income and receive some rewards for completing these steps of the mission. I can see that I still have just my basic 5,000-esque income. I can earn an extra 10,000 right now. If I do a few of these steps, I will probably make enough income at the end of it to buy a new skill book and start training a new skill. And the same goes for any agents and missions in this game, and most of the encounters, you will receive in-game monetary rewards for completing objectives. And as you go through this, and as you learn to take advantage of the skills and training in-game, you will proceed in a way where you can start aiming towards becoming self-sufficient or producing enough goods that you can sell those things or use them to your benefit in the game. And this is how every player of EVE Online typically makes their income. If they're not buying Plex with their credit card and selling it in-game for in-game currency, Plexing your account, or trading Plex, then you're not. If you're not doing that, you're doing these things. You're building ships for other players to use. You're making ammunition for other players to shoot. You're doing planetary interaction to extract goods from basically farms on moons that you've set up. You can mine and reprocess that and make stuff, or just sell the reprocessed or compressed ore. There's loads of ways to make money in this game and become self-sufficient. But in order to get there, in order to understand what it is that you're doing, you have to go through these initial steps to kind of orient yourself on the game and also understand the relationship between, product demand and sales before you're at a place where you understand what things are worth, who to sell them to, how to go about building that out. And that's what the starter missions are for. So the agents and missions tab here and the initial tutorial is to help you understand how you can get through all of this. And to start, you're going to want to look at career agents, because career agents will help you get started in exploration, in business, in industry, in military, and the advanced military path. So if you want to understand how to get around and how to make initial sense of the universe, after you're done the initial tutorial, make sure that you go to the career agents and then proceed into the other paths from there. This will help you to go forward. Now I can activate this and I can start the process of making extra income by following Aura's steps and instructions. So now she wants me to undock. And she's going to give me some direction. There we go. So we're going to choose a location and we're going to say warp to location. So now that I'm undocked, Aura's going to give my computer well, she is the computer. She's going to set the destination and we're going to set off. Now you'll notice that this lovely little civilian turret does a certain amount of damage. It can shoot out to 5 kilometers of range. It's most effective within 800 meters. It does 4 DPS, 4 damage per second, and the damage caused is a mix of kinetic and explosive damage. And it has a certain turret tracking speed. In this case, very, very fast. Now, I don't require ammunition for the civilian weapon, but other Minmatar weapons at greater size do require it. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to want to take advantage of the fact that this gun has a fairly short orbit range. I can see the orbit's currently set for 1,000. I'm going to change this to 500, which is the minimum. So I'm going to set an orbit on this vessel so that I'm orbiting it within the maximum, or within the optimal range rather, of my guns. And I've turned on my afterburner to help me close the distance on this vessel quickly. And I've only turned it on for 1 cycle just to get me there so I get there quickly. But now I've turned it off so that I really don't overshoot the target or go so fast that my guns can't track. And now I'm going to lock the target and start shooting it. So now as I'm orbiting, I'm shooting this guy. Now I'm orbiting him at around my optimal range. And you can see that as soon as I got inside of basically 800 kilometers, I started doing a lot more damage. And that's the way this works, is that once you set your default orbit distance, which you can right click and say set default, and it's within the optimal range of your weapon, you can see that you will do more damage inside your optimal range. So when I'm looking at this, I want to be inside that inner red circle. The outer red circle, I'll still hit him and I'll still do damage, but I do more damage and I apply more effectively inside that inner red circle. This is where having your tactical overlay turned on becomes helpful. So now, because I don't want to get too far away from the wrecks, I'm going to stop my ship. And I'm going to reapproach the wrecks and I'm going to loot them. Now I'm doing this visually. I could also use my situational tab and approach the wrecks and then loot them. So now when I look in my cargo hold, I can see that I have looted 3 different bits of wreckage so far. I can stack these, and now I have a stack of 11 metal scraps. So I have these rewards here that I've gotten by destroying these ships. And while I'm here, I can take a minute to sightsee. So I can go, I want to go, show info on this, and I can see the details about the sleeper preservation conduit, and I can read the storyline behind this, so I can understand, I've come here, I've destroyed these rats, but where is it exactly that I am? And I can zoom in, and if I really want a cinematic look, I can hold Control and press F9, and I can hide the entire heads-up display, and I can just take some time to hold Alt and click on things and zoom around at different levels and look at different aspects of the absolutely beautiful art of this game and see, what is going on around me. So if I know I'm in a place where I'm not at significant immediate threat and I just want to take a minute to really enjoy the look of what I'm seeing here, I can do that whenever I like. And I can return back to my ship, turn my heads-up display back on, and then I can go out from here. And as you can see, this really is a very, very, very small ship. It is one of the smallest ships in EVE. So now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go back to my agency window, and I'm going to say, let's go claim the rewards. Boom, 10,000 ISK in our wallet for completing that step of the mission. Next step is going to double our rewards again. So right now we have a wallet, 15,000 ISK. In the last 30 days, that's most of my income. I can double that 15,000 ISK by doing the next stage in the mission. And this is where you can start to see, it's going to cost me 65,000 ISK to go and buy the Amar Frigate skill book, or to purchase the skill book, 125,000 ISK to purchase the skill book for Minmatar Destroyer. But I could very quickly get there by running missions. This is how you proceed by learning the different portions of the skills required as soft skills from you, the player, in EVE Online. Your individual character, however, will learn their skills over time as they train. And this happens even when you're logged out. I think that because I've been recording for almost an hour now, this is a good starting place, a good starting overview for new players coming in. I think this provides a lot more context than what you would get out of just looking at this as a new player trying to figure your way through the new player experience. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to throw a comment in the comment section below or ask any questions you may have. I look forward to chatting with you again soon, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If there's anything that I haven't addressed or anything you'd like to know, just poke me with a question. I promise I will try to answer you. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. I hope you will look forward to the rest of the series around new players, tips and tricks. Thank you. Chat with you guys again soon. Fly safe.